welcome back. I'm hoping the other videos helped you out some, gave you some info that maybe you didn't know before, and I'm hoping this one does the same. I wanted to go over pretty much another breakdown of one of my pages, but on this one's a little different because right on top I wanted to go over how I'm trying to go about making a landscape view. Now in Daz, as you know, it's really not that good to do far landscape view on like a whole scene. If you wanted to do a village or a street or inside a building, yeah, it's fine. They have the assets. But if you wanted to do fantasy landscape view, like the ones you might find online, uh, something like this, you don't have a whole set. You're gonna have to somehow Photoshop it in or just put in a bunch of different assets to try to get as close as you can. But since I'm doing the comic book, I do want some of these big. See, you might be able to figure out something like this, but not so much the mountain in the background. That's gonna have to be photoshopped or somehow faked. Um, I did want one of these. I mean, look how beautiful that is. You're not gonna get this, but I wanted to figure out a way how I could do it um, for the comic. For the comic, even though there's 3D elements, and I'm not afraid to use some 2D elements to get in there. But on one of my opening scenes, it's an open view with mountains in the background, and I decided to put a statue in there. Now I'm going to break down real quick how I'm going about it. If you're watching the video, then it worked, because I wouldn't waste your time if it wasn't going to work. So here's the opening scene right here. Let me just point this out exactly what I'm trying to do. See, so it's basically, if you could see it, you got the mountains. Just a quick sketch. This is what I mean, it's a good thing when you work by yourself. You don't have to worry about trying to explain this to anybody else. If they're like, well, what the hell are you trying to tell me here? But see, I got some trees here, and I had some mountains in the background. It's just an opening scene, which it changed some, but I'll show you that in a second. And I wanted a statue. I wanted something in the background, something big on. I started to figure that I wanted a hand, just a statue of a hand that's maybe been buried, that's, maybe it was part of something bigger and just kind of got lost over time. It's just kind of just sitting there, just rotting away, stone breaking off. Maybe it's got some leaves on it. It's just coming off the ground. And you got a little bit of a hand here, nothing dramatic. But maybe some dust coming off, blowing off into the wind, I wanted something like that. Maybe it's the sun in the background. And so that's what I was figuring out. And I did try to do it in Daz. There's just nothing big enough not a big enough scene where I could put it all together. Now, a while back ago, I bought View. I don't know if many of you are familiar with View. It's an elemental 3D program. They used it to make some of the backgrounds in Avatar. They used it in several motion pictures. And it's pretty user friendly for very basic stuff. But if you really want to get deep on it, and it's really not that expensive for the basic model. And I'm not going to give you a review on View, but my biggest complaint is that's basically for the basic model, which really doesn't do much. It's cheap, but once you wanting to start to add on different elements, like right here, this is OBG model I got from Daz, that I exported from Daz, and I wanted to bring it into here. That was like an extra $90 to get that, what they call a model, they call it a whatever it is, the plugin, to bring in other models from other programs into View, and it's like another $90. And to add on, to be able to put trees and other elements, which I had here earlier, you see the render, but that was like another $90. It's just add on really quick. Before you know, you got this biggest expensive program. So I mean, I'm not recommending not to get it. I'm not recommending to get it. I bought it and I barely used it. This would be the first time that I actually use it for the comic, so I'm hoping it works out. But I wanted to show you how I got this hand in here, and we're gonna go into Daz. Okay, so this was a regular model. This was, I think it was Genesis 2, and I knew from the start that I just wanted to use his hand, and you could see that he doesn't have any bones on him. Basically what it was I brought him in, I created him. I forgot which part of clothing this was. I think it was from like Ivan 7 or something. I can't remember exactly. And then I posed him real quick using one of the preset poses. I think it was Agony, because all I wanted was his arm, so it didn't matter. And then I exported him. Now I'm gonna go over exporting it just in case if you don't know. But this is how it is when it comes out exported. It's just basically a shell. And I brought it into view. Now I want to show you that it is actually just a shell. The man is actually fully there. I didn't cut his hand out and like that. See, there he is. All I did was hide him underneath the mountain. See, he's right in there. All I wanted was his arm, and it's coming right out. See, it looks kind of silly, but that's basically it. And it is kind of cool because you could do this with numerous poses. You could put statues just standing right up there, and that's what I'm planning on doing, is making a lot of landscapes with these ancient statues, this fantasy type of feel. But so anyways, let's go back into the Daz, and I'm gonna show you real quick how to export this out, just in case if you ever wanted to try it. So I'm gonna create Genesis 2 or Genesis 3. If hurry up, clear. Okay. So I'm gonna grab, let's just say Genesis 2 model. It doesn't matter. Let's grab somebody we might know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Whatever. Okay, we got him, and we're gonna throw something on him. Whatever. It doesn't. I keep saying whatever, but I'm over here trying to pick out something decent. Let's just pick this. And the pants. And let's throw a pose on him. Nope, got the poses over here. This is the one I used for the other guy. Let's throw a pose on him. Sure. You know, one thing I wanted to show you real quick since I have it open. This is what I do a lot. I don't know if you're aware of grouping. I'm sure some of you do. Some of you probably don't. What is grouping? It's something you should use basically all the time you're creating a bunch of characters and you're bringing them into the same scene. I just want to show you how easily it works, because I do a lot of hiding of what's in the background and what's in the foreground when I do my renders. Now grouping, you probably noticed if you don't use grouping and you wanted to hide your character for whatever reason, because maybe you wanted to render something in the background or you just didn't want to deal with it, or you wanted to lock it down. See, I can't select the character, but I can still select his clothing. If I wanted to hide it, but you still got his clothing, and if he had hair, you'd still be able to select his hair. So then you got to separately go into there and hide everything. Well, just real quick, if you don't know about grouping, you select the hierarchy, the parent, which if you know about hierarchy, this is the parent, and everything else underneath them would be considered the children, the child. So you go to create, new group, and then you would name it. We'll just go group 1, make it easy. Oh, what happened? Didn't do it. Alright, create new group, name it group 1, there it goes. And you'd rename it whenever, just double tap right on it. And you can rename it. Alright, so now it's all considered in group 1. Now when you go to hide that group, everything is hidden. No more having to go click on each separate clothing. Everything is hidden underneath the group. Same thing with locking it down. Lock it down, I can't select anything, and this is great for backgrounds. This is absolutely great for backgrounds because when you bring in a big scene with hundreds of assets in it, if you add it to a group and you lock it, that's it. Nothing gets selected because you know there's so many times where you have a scene and you're trying to select a character and everything in the background is just getting highlighted and it drives you nuts. So if you don't use groups, start using them. And that's that. Okay, so we got a character. Let's say we want to export them out to use them as a statue or just a background or actually, yeah, you could do that too. If you wanted to make a crowd in the background and you knew you weren't going to remodel this character, and let's say he was in a walking position and you wanted to keep it light, not so data heavy, because you're going to have a bunch of them in the background, and you could also do that. You're going to export it, wavefront object, obj. One thing about, you see I have a few of them already exported. I made a folder for each and every one. The reason being is just in case you want the texture maps, you could import it back in with the actual textures on it. So like if he was going to be a background character and not a statue, and you wanted to have all his texture maps and everything attached to him, but you can't, you won't be able to model him, you won't be able to move him any longer once he's imported as OBJ. But you still have all his texture maps and he'll still act the way he's supposed to act towards lighting and shadows. You're gonna want to open up a new folder. So let's say if you have a bunch of these, if you made a bunch of them, you're gonna want to do a new folder, and I'll tell you why in a second here. And we'll just call it guy, and then go into that folder, and you know, whatever, we'll just call the file guy. And now it's gonna ask you, you know, I usually keep everything on the default, except make sure when it says right surface, you gotta collect maps. The reason I say that, because if it's not checked, it's not gonna save its texture maps. But once you check it, it will save the texture maps. Whether you want to use them or not, they'll be there. So accept, and just export everything out. And I think we, okay, now let's say you open up your file where you're gonna need this guy either as a background guy or a statue, or in view. Actually, you know what, we'll just use Daz to make it simpler. So you go to import and look for guy, look for wherever you put him in. See, now this is the thing, it made the folder with the texture maps. You can't see them because, well, we'll open it through here. Where is it? OBJ. See, here's the guy, and here's all the texture maps. Now if you didn't make the new folder, what it would have done was, if I would have put it here, what it would have done was it would have put it here and erased the texture map that's on this page. I'm already using it for something. That's for like one of the castles here. That's for this one right here, the castle. See, it's small castle, small castle. If I didn't make a new folder like I did for all these, see, they all have their own maps. If I didn't make a new folder, it would have put it right here, and instead of making a second folder for guy, it just would erase the folder that's already here. And so when I went to open the castle, those maps would have not been there. It would have been the maps for the guy. Just so you know, that's just a little headache that happens. So we're gonna import guy, accept, and here he is. See, he has all his texture maps, but you can't move him. You cannot pose him. You can still shrink him, make him bigger, make him smaller. But that's a good way to put background characters if you don't want to make your scene so heavy. Look how quickly he imported. You can move him around. He can be walking around, whatever. I know he's posed like he has a gun, but if he's in a shop, you can pose him whatever you want before you export him. And you export him, and you just have him in the background. Just have him in the background. And in view, you can have him as a statue. Simple as that. This ain't a tutorial for view. I just wanted to give you an idea about view. And let's go back into Photoshop and I'll show you the render that came out. So here was the idea and the render. I'll find it in a second here. I can find it. Oh, for some reason I hit them all. Alright. Right, that was me playing with the colors, and here it is. So let's get a good look at it. Let me hide everything else so we're not looking down there. So you got the hand. I already started working on it a little bit, and then I figured, you know what, let me record this because somebody might want to know about it. So you got the hand already in there. This is the clouds from View. I'm telling you, it's a great program for creating clouds and creating mountains. It really is. It's real simple. I don't know how much you're going to use it though, so I'm not going to go crazy and recommend it. It also gave me an alpha map, so I was able to separate the foreground from the background, which will allow me to do a lot of paint over work on it. So then what I did, it still looked a little plain. It didn't look as fantasy, you know. You know, you look a lot of this work from professional artists and it's just outright gorgeous. And that's what I'm going to bring to the comic book. So that's something else. I don't want to jump to that yet. So I rendered him out, and I still got to paint over it and do all my paint work that I do on it, and maybe, you know, put some curtains or a little bit of rags and stuff dragging on it. But I figured this might be kind of good to put him on the side here. I might even be able to shrink him a little bit. Just make it a little smaller because maybe it's too big. He's coming off the side here, and something like that. We'll see how that goes. Let's get rid of this horse noise here. Something like that, maybe. Some snow coming off the top. Maybe I make it snowing. We'll figure it out. But at least it gave me a landscaping. And I mean, look, you got the trees in there. You got the mountains in the background. Not most beautiful, but I could still go in and touch it up. You got this clouds. You got all that stuff. And there's other ways to create this. I mean, there definitely is another way to create this. If you wanted to do it in 2D, go right ahead. I just didn't want to do too much 2D and have it look so different from what's rendered down here. I mean, I might do some 2D backgrounds here. Maybe a castle in the distance, or just some buildings, or, you know, who knows, whatever. So that gives you an idea how that was done. Down here, just some more renders that I'm working on. I want to show you how I did this one real quick. I'm going to open up that file right now. Go to the camera. Okay. So see how I'm selecting that carriage? It drives me crazy. But since I grouped it, I just go ahead and lock the group, and nothing in that carriage gets selected. So if you're not aware of that, now you know. So okay, so I got the Nicholas character. And yeah, I know his cape is going through the seat. I'm not worried about that. I'm not gonna render it. If I did, I was be able to clean it up with Photoshop. But that's gonna be hidden. So he's got the two horses. And I got this scene right here. This is it right here. Now if you see, here it is right here. This is how it's rendered out. I got the horses here, and I have them on a different file. Okay, we're stuck here. Alright, here we go. I got them on a different file. Do I not have them on a different file? Stuck here. Is this the wrong file? Okay, well, look, I'll unparent them. There we go. So here are the horses. So when I go to render it, I had the camera set up something like this. As you can see, I had the camera set up something like this, looking up, and I rendered the horses one at a time. The horses each in each group. See how I took the horse out but everything else stayed? So I had the horse in each separate group. Look, see? I had this horse, this horse in his own group. I named it like horse 1, horse 2. Well, you get the picture. Alright, so I had the horses, and I rendered them separately so I could bring them here, which allows me to move them. So if I wanted to move them a little more out here, I wanted to move this one a little more out here, I could do that. I also rendered his cape separately, and I had it in this position, but I knew I wanted this big dramatic cape. So what I did was I made it invisible, I made the carriage invisible, the horses invisible, and I had the cape. And then I went ahead and posed the cape to how I wanted it. Now I know it's going through his leg and through the seat and stuff like that, but I'll touch that up. I'll just erase it. I mean, I'm real quick, just giving ideas. See, I'll just erase the cape, and his foot's gonna be behind there, so we'll be alright. See? It'll be alright. Just to show you real quick how I'll touch it up. And then I'll give it a background. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. I'm kind of trying to wing it. I have an idea what I wanted there, but I made the page wider, so. But this is the next thing we're going to be working on, so you get an idea what's going on here. Here I wanted a shot of his toys, and it's in the same Daz file. Where's the carriage? The toys are inside of camera 2. See, they're right in there. And I'm gonna dirty them up. Where's the render? Oh, did I erase already? Let me get rid of this guy. Okay, the toys are in here. Maybe I'm gonna put a few more, and I'm gonna go over to Photoshop because these are like old toys. So I'm gonna dirty them up. So that's what we're gonna be doing from this point on. It's probably gonna speed up the video and put some music on, so if you don't want to hear the music, go ahead, lower the volume. But just to give you a basic idea, if you have any questions, ask me in the comments. If you wanted to see me explain, do my Photoshop steps, go right ahead, and I'll do another video. But from this point on, it's basically gonna be just speed up the video, and there'll be music in the background, and I'll paint over all of this, and I'll paint over each stuff. I'll paint over the horses and the background here, and you also see me figure out what am I gonna put down here on the sides. Alright, thanks for watching so far.